date, payment, interest, principal, all right, balance. Okay. So if I borrowed $18,000 for a car and I'm going to make payments for 60 months, this is all review right now. 60 months. Okay. And I want to calculate the payment. Let's say I pay 3% interest divided by 12 is what my I will be, because it's a monthly payment. And so the 3% is annual, so I need to change it to monthly. And then 5 years, so 5 times 12, 60 months. And I'm borrowing $18,000. So my payment is $323.44. Does everybody follow me through that? So to calculate your payment on a loan, you need the rate of interest. It's an annual rate. So if it's a monthly payment, divide it by 12, the number of years of your loan times 12, and then the amount you're borrowing is the present value because you're borrowing it today. So your payment is $323.44. My interest is based on the outstanding balance. I equals PRT. So you click on the outstanding balance times 0.03 times 1/12. You got to basically divide that rate by 12 again. So principal times rate times time. So the interest is it 45 even? It probably is. Yeah, okay. So the amount that doesn't go to interest goes to principal. And now your loan balance dwindles down to $17,721.56.
Pretty low amount of going to interest, right? Usually they front load interest.
Right. But what happens is because our rate is so low, not a lot's going to interest. This is just a car loan. So if we did it on a house loan and instead of $18,000, it was $180,000, then it would be a lot more interest. So what I do is I just highlight these, Arrow plus, Fab plus, Skinny plus, double click. And then at the bottom, it says 0. So the last payment you make, only 81 cents goes to interest as opposed to $45. So really is front loading it like you are. So your interest is based on the previous loan balance every single time. And as the balance dwindles, so does the amount that goes to interest. So this is called an amortization table, and you will be making these in this chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter. Okay. All the way through 17, we will be making lots of amortization tables. We will amortize things, leases and all kinds of stuff. Okay. So yay, I'm so excited. You're going to get really good at it because this is the time to do that. Okay. So, okay. So
whenever you put the extra in, does that extra take interest too, or is it just strictly on the principal?
nope, it's all principal. So if I decided to insert a column and say extra principal, then, and I decided instead of $323, I want to make a payment of around $500. So I'm going to pay an extra $200 to principal. Then I'm going to take off that 200. And so that 200 there saved me $231.74. So it saved me $31.74 of interest over the whole life of the loan. So it cut off $31 of interest. So if I do that over and over again, then I'll actually have my loan paid off in month 36. In month 36, I'll owe 95 cents.
What did you say?
In 60 months, well, I would have to first calculate how much interest I'm paying here. So the easiest way to do that would just be to highlight all this. And so my interest would be $844.67. So remember that number, 844. And then let me hit undo and get rid of that $200. And my interest was $1,406. So 1406 minus, did I say 844?
Yes.
Yeah, so it saved me $562 in interest over the 5-year period. So it's not a ton, but I also paid off my loan in 3 years instead of 5 years. So by paying that extra $200 each month. So when you have extra money to be able to pay down on loans, you should, to get yourself out of houses faster or out of cars faster, because you want to get yourself out of those loans. And so it does make a huge difference. I mean, if you think of it as a percentage, I mean, like you say 562 on 1406, and so it was almost half of the interest. So, okay, so let's go back over to this. And so our interest on that very first payment. So if this was Excel, we would do equals and we would click on that cell times 0.08 times 1 year. Okay, so we said the interest is 4,000, so the rest of it goes to principal. So the payment is 19,401.68, so the amount that will reduce principal is. So you would take the 19,401.68 minus 4,000, and it's 15,401.68. Right? I'm showing my work excessively, but there was a time in my life where Dr. Harris used to miss class pretty regularly. Dr. Harris was the finance guy before JLo. So it appeared that I would have to go into Dr. Harris's class kind of regularly and teach principles of finance. And I would teach this stuff and I would show them this and they were like, oh my gosh, that makes total sense. You know, so having them do this like was a logical thing because I'd have them do it in Excel and calculate amortization in Excel and calculate payments in Excel and do all of that. So our loan balance used to be 50,000, but we're paying off 15,401.68. So what I need to do is I need to take the new outstanding balance. You take 50,000 minus 15,401.68, and you would get 34,598.32. Okay. And so now I want you to finish out the table. So you calculate interest on 34,598.32 and then figure out how much goes to principal to find out the loan balance. And so you do the last 2 years. This is exciting. I'm so happy to be hanging out with you guys. You make my heart super happy. No, I think it'll come out to 0 though, so that's nice. I think I had to mess around with it to get it where it came out to 0 without having it have a penny left over, you know, because a lot of times rounding wise, it would make a penny left over, but I think I got this one right, but maybe not. You know what happens when I make up my own numbers? They never come out pretty, but they're real, so that's nice. I mean, this isn't that real because you don't get a payment on a loan that's every year, but I didn't want you guys to have to do this 36 times by hand. I like you to do one by hand with a calculator just so you can see how it works. And so oh, and you're probably right, but I don't know. Okay, so I'm bad at my job. Okay, we knew that. We knew that. Aw. I was talking about that with maybe my mom the other day. I was saying how I always say I'm bad at my job. And then I was like, Tor always says, I'm drunk. That's what Tor always says. That's his go-to. Anytime he does something silly, he's like, oh man, I'm drunk. I'm like, he's not drunk.
The rounding lines too.
Yeah.
That's round to the nearest penny.
So 34,598.32 at 8% for 1 year is 2767.87. And so then the amount that goes to principal is 16,633.81. And gets you 17,964.51. $1,437.16.
Yes.
Ah, 17,964.52. Right. So what we would do is we would just give them a penny less right here if we were doing this in real life. That's why when you do loans, a lot of times it says calculate or call the bank for your last loan payment. So they'll give you the exact dollar amount to pay because it'll be off by a few pennies here and there. One time, GM, I think it was GM because it was when I had an Alero. They sent me a check for 20 cents in the mail.
That's such a waste.
I know, but then my dad was a co-signer on the loan because it was back when I was in college. And so the check was actually made out to Jim Merck and Nicole Merck. And so I had to get him to sign with me to be able to cash the check. So I didn't cash it. And I decided that I would just make it an outstanding check for their bank reconciliation, just to make them mad. Like, so that they have to keep keeping track of that 20-cent check, which is a weird thing to say. But I was I was like, I'm going to mess with them for being silly, sending me a 20-cent check.
Nicole, could they just write it off, or how would they get around that?
After 6 months, they can call it a stale check and then they can just delete it. And so but I'd have to keep track of it for 6 months. So
Well, you know, they're paying somebody else money for that.
I know, but my loan was done. I was mad at them. Like, I was like annoyed. So that they wrote me a check for 20 cents, but like, it was nice of them to give it to me. I mean, they could have just said, forget it. I got a call yesterday and it was from the people who pulled my wisdom teeth over the summer. And they left me a message and they said that they wanted to contact me about a refund on my account because I had a credit balance on my account. And I got super excited and I was like, you're going to call them. It's gonna be like 25 cents or whatever. And I called and they were like, we owe you $8.30. And I was like, okay. So they were like, can we put it on a credit card for you? And I was like, of course you can. So I was like, it's nice of them to call me. But then I think about the fact that she had called me and left a message and I called her back and she had to run my payment and everything else. And so she spent more than $8.30 of that business's time to get me back $8.30. And I wanted to just say, like, can you just apply it to somebody else's account? But then I thought that would just create even more work for her. So I'm just going to go ahead and let her give it back to me. Okay. So it looks like our balance is negative penny. So what we would do in that situation literally is we would adjust this one by a penny, which would adjust this one by a penny. And then this one would be 0. But you guys get the concept? Feel good about it? Good. Okay. Bonds. We already kind of talked about this. And so bonds sell in increments of $1,000. They pay interest semi-annually. The prices are quoted as a percentage of the face value. So if a bond is selling at 98, that means 98% of the face value. So the $1,000 bond would sell for $980. If the bond is selling at 102, that means 102% of the face value. So that means the bond would sell for $1,020. So that's how bonds are quoted as prices. So bonds can have different characteristics. And so a convertible bond means it can be converted into shares of stock. So let's say that you guys all have bonds and they're $1,000 bonds and I pay you your interest of $50 and you're like, oh yeah, that bond. And then you flip it over on the back like it's printed and read the rules of the bond and you realize that that bond can be converted to 10 shares of stock. You're like, oh, that's interesting. So you get online and you look at my stock price and my stock price is $80 a share. And you're like, I got to cash in my $1,000 bond for $800 in stock. And so you just put your bond away and you go on with your life. And then next 6 months, you get your interest again. And so I send you another $50. So you're like, oh yeah, that bond. I wonder what the stock price is. And you log in and my stock is selling for $130 a share. And you're like, ooh, you could cash in your bond for 10 shares of stock. So you could send your bond in and I'm going to mail you 10 shares of stock. I don't know how it's done electronically. I'm sure that there's a way, but I don't know how it works. But that's what a convertible bond is. So you can convert at the option of the investor. So the investor decides if they want to convert it. So they can if they want, but they don't have to. So Taryn, if you noticed and you did it, then great job. And then Carter, if you didn't notice and you didn't, you still get your interest your $50 every 6 months. And you might wait another year and then maybe the price will be $190.
Do you, like, whenever this occurs, can you convert it and you can just sell out right away? So like that money, say we gave $1,000 for it, that money comes out of that $500,000 bond.
Right. So you convert it into stock and then you could turn around and sell the stock and get the money. And then you have an extra $300 or whatever.
So basically, it would only be the 1,000, not including any of the interest that would be subtracted or any of that.
Nope. So the interest is paid every 6 months. And so whoever you sell the bond to, they're going to get the interest.
Okay, so it's only $1,000, but that's why it's a profit of say 300.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
So other types of bonds, callable bonds. We talked about those on the last test. A callable bond, and you're like, boo. A callable bond means that it can be called at the option of the company. So let's say that my bond, I'm paying you guys 10% interest. I'm mailing you $50 every 6 months for 5 years. And then I realize that I can refinance and I only have to pay 6% interest. My credit score goes up. Things are good for my company. Rates have gone down. I can refinance. I can call your bond anytime I want. So I'm supposed to be mailing you $50 every 6 months. And so I can say, here is your interest to today. I'm done with you. So I'll mail you your $1,000 back and whatever interest I owe you for like a partial 6-month period. So I can call it anytime I want. Yes. Well, a couple different things. You do get the interest until they call it, and they may never call it. So maybe it has a better rate of interest for you. Maybe it's a company that you want to invest in because you think that it's going to do better. Maybe it's callable and convertible. So you like the convertible feature. Investors don't necessarily like a call feature because they don't want their bond to get canceled, but that doesn't mean that a company's going to. It just means they can if they want. You still get your $1,000 back. So
with the calculation, would you still like calculate it like you did with like normal interest? So like if it's say 2 months left, or if it's 2 months after that, it would be 2 out of 12.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, on the test, callable bonds, I thought it was other where like because it was a contingent liability.
So a callable bond is it's not a contingent liability. A callable bond is an actual bond, but it was going to go in the current section because we never know. The company could call it anytime they wanted.
And I thought that meant that like you can't do
Okay, so you're thinking about it from the investment standpoint, like you're the one buying the bonds. And we'll do it from that direction too, but in chapter 12. So we'll do that. So
on the interest, what happens if it's like say like you've already done the 6 months, let's say 8 months of the year? How would the calculation be? Would
it'd still be 2 months because every 6 months you're going to mail $50. And so if you're 1 month in, then you would get 1/6 of $50 or 2/6 or 3/6.
Why wouldn't you do it at 6 instead of 12?
Because the rate is the annual rate. So you would use the annual rate. So yep, no problem. So other bond characteristics, bonds can be secured. Oh, it's time. Secured bonds means it's collateral. Unsecured means they're not. There's debenture. Debenture is another word. Is that how you say that word? Debenture? Debenture? I think it's debenture. Subordinated debenture? I don't know. So serial versus term. Serial means several staggering due dates. Term means they're all due at the same time. Okay, let me stop my share real quick. And let me see if you guys can do any homework. I know it's a little bit weird, but I want you to do exercise 1420. Is that on your list of homework?
Yeah.
Good. Just do exercise 1420 for me, but don't do any other ones.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. So exercise 1420, because we haven't done enough about bonds to do the bond valuation yet, and we'll do that next time. So just exercise 1420.
Very nerdy of me, but I bought a book on bonds. So I'll be able to like fill you in if you need it.
Well, I'm going to need it because I only know like the accounting side of it, not necessarily the finance side. So there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm okay admitting when I don't know stuff.
I have no idea.
We can always pull J-Lo in and make him teach us more about bonds.
He's just gonna BS his way through it.
But I'll keep doing it my way. We'll be fine. Yes, you guys have a great day. Bye. I'll see you in a little bit, Olivia.